All right, so I'm going to show you guys an import order I got a couple weeks ago. I want to say 3 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. The roots came in really dry. The ones I'm going to show you guys are silver swords. The roots came in pretty dry, so I couldn't tell what was rotten and what was viable. So I just stuck them in a cup of water. Like I was saying in a previous video, just put them in a little bit of water, let them hydrate a little bit. Because I have them in the tanks, the Tupperware containers with a lid on it, it's really humid in there. So the roots, sometimes the roots perk up, sometimes they don't. In this case, some of them are still good. Got some good ones in here. That's a good one right there. But a lot of these are just junk. So I just clip them off. Actually, you know, these ones aren't that bad because they're not mushy. They're just dark and ugly. So if it's not mush, I leave it. So I just take my fingernail and scrape along it just to see if these ones aren't terribly bad. I had one that was just all solid mush, and I'll check the other ones. So I'll show you what I did with that one. I pulled all the roots off of it. So there's nothing left down there. But what's happening, because of the humidity container and the fact that it's rooting in water, it's all those other nodes are putting off little bitty baby roots. So what I'll probably end up doing is when it does root, those roots will come down. Once those are decent looking, then I'll plant the entire plant in my substrate. But in the meantime, I'm just going to leave it in the water. I'm going to check each one and then show you guys what I'm talking about here when I get some goopy ones. Yeah, so this, you can see here, just basically it's just mush. The outside of that stem pulls away, and it just leaves like that little hair. So I just pinch that all off. You can use clippers, nippers, tools, whatever you want to use. I tend to just do this with my fingernail because I just find that to be easier for myself. Every personal preference for everybody, really. But yeah, just make sure that there's nothing on there that's still rotten. Make sure when you clip it that you go a little bit into the healthy root because you don't want that rot spreading. I like that what I was going to say. I like that when you water root them, when they come in, you can watch their roots a lot better than putting them straight into a substrate. Because when you put in a substrate, you have to watch the leaves. Then you're going to go off of the leaves, whether leaves are starting to look bad or you're not getting any new growth or anything like that. And I don't like that not knowing. So this just makes it easier. So I can just check them. And then I'm going to end up changing out that water also. So my basement happens to have a French trench in it. So I stand by my little packing table. I'm going to take this cup of water and I'm literally just going to dump it on the floor. And then I'm going to go over here, get a new cup, and easy peasy just fill it with water. Again, I'm going to use my pond water for this in my reusable cat litter jugs that my neighbor saves me. I'm going to put in just enough water to cover the bottom. Put that back in. Those roots aren't mush yet, so I'm going to leave the rest of them there. Put those back in. And then I'll end up putting that back into the Tupperware container. I turned them off for the video, but there are grow lights behind me. So the way I have that set up, I showed you guys the tank setup that I have. I have the cookie tray, cookie cooling rack in the bottom of the Tupperware container. And then I just basically, once they're in that container, I bring them down. See over my shoulder, bring them down, and they go on that right there. That's where all of my imports come. Right now I've got a couple rehabs that I did for some friends in the green containers. Those generally aren't there. They're gonna have to move because I have some more orders coming in. But the two boxes in the middle right there next to the orange shelf, those have two different sellers' orders. So I'm not gonna put the same ones in the same container. Underneath that tub, there's a heat mat, and it's sitting on a piece of tile so that it maintains the heat. And then you can see my giant mess over there. I've got all my chemicals and my different random things. I got some extra grow containers and pot of sand and the perlite that's in that big bag and some random junk just all kind of thrown in there. Like I was saying in another video, I'm not the world's most organized person. I'm organized for me, but not for the average person probably. But I know where my stuff is, and that's really what matters, right? So yeah, so this plant, even though they're very dark, it's very dark, but they're not squishy. So I'm going to leave those. I only take off the ones that squish. That one's got a little squish to it, so that one's starting to go. So I'm going to pop that one off. I'll check the rest here with you guys. But all of them have really nice roots starting up higher. So even if your roots come in just basically, oh, okay, so that one actually snapped right off. So I don't even have a base on this one, which really is not a huge deal to me. I might end up pulling that off and saving this because there are some nodes in there. I'll just save it and see if anything happens with it. In the meantime, this will go back in the water to root up higher. But this I'm just going to pull anything that squishes off of it. There's a bit on there. These ones came in with pretty weak stems, so they'll need a little bit of time before they'll be ready to go. Some stuff you get in and it's just, they don't need a lot of, I mean, I always wait like 2 months, at least a minimum of 2 months before anything is listed for sale. Yeah, that one's like really squished, so that one's gonna come right off. Yeah, but I always wait a couple months before. You never want to import and then send out immediately. You know, you want to make sure everything's going to be healthy and happy, and I want everybody that buys from me to get really healthy plants. So even the things that come in and really need zero rehab, which happens on occasion, not a lot, but it does happen, those are still going to stay with me for a while, because I just want to make sure that everything's stable, everything's happy, there's not going to be any issues. So that I'm probably just going to throw in a little Ziploc of sphagnum moss, damp sphagnum moss, and just kind of see what happens with that. It might do something, it might not. My guess is it'll do something. So if you can see here, this is how they all came in. It's really a really weak point down here that it's attached to. It was a propagated stem. But I do have some roots coming in up here, which are wonderful. Those are really very nice looking. And these, however, are not. So these are all going to go. And I'll be a little bit more careful with this one so I don't snap that off at the base. And check each one of these. Yeah, see when I just rub my fingers on them, I get muck. That's root rot. I don't want any of that on my plant. Like none whatsoever. I'm just going to pinch all of that off again. I was going to play music for you guys in the background so I didn't have to chatter the whole time, but apparently I can't play music from my phone into my speaker and talk to you guys all at the same time, so you just get to hear me breathe and chatter about nothing. So I'd be curious how you guys are enjoying my videos. This is not something that necessarily comes natural to me, but I know that there are a lot of people that are curious about how, you know, rehab works on imports and what to do with different things, you know, tips and hints. I will do another tour eventually of more of my plants because I know people liked that. But, all right, so that one I kind of nipped all the gunk off, and it doesn't look too bad. I'll check these again in a couple days, see if everything still looks good or more needs to be pulled off. And I'll just keep doing that until some solid roots start growing in. But yeah, see, it just flakes right off in my hand. When these came in, they were crispy dry. Like there was no way of knowing if it was like a viable root or not. Chances are, because it was so dry, they weren't going to be good. But I didn't want to pull anything off on the off chance that it ended up being a viable root. Because if I would have just pulled everything right away, I would have lost See, this is a good one. I would have lost that. And ironically, I'm double filming today to see how the GoPro works. So I've got my phone here, and I've got the GoPro above. Because I've never used one, it's my husband's, and the GoPro just went black, so I'm guessing that that's not filming me. But we'll find out afterwards. Alright, and that's pretty much that. This one is very dark. I really feel like there's probably some stuff that needs pulled on here, but it's still firm. So I'm just going to leave it and just see what happens over the next couple days. Oh, you know what? Some of that's soft. I like to go over them a few times, just make sure I didn't miss anything. And then they'll go back in water for a couple more weeks probably. These are actually growing, these extra roots up here, they're growing really nicely, so it won't take them very long to look pretty. But there's that. Alright, so those are all cleaned up. I'll show you guys the tubs. You'll have to disregard my basement. Our house was built in 1920, and as you can see, the basement ceiling's quite low. And we've got a lot of stuff down here, and there's that GoPro that I don't think is working. So over here, I've got this tub. It has some clarinervium in there. So this order was just some clarinervium and some silver sword. So I'll cover that back up. The silver sword will go back in there. And then this was a separate order. It's got more anthuriums. It's got a couple syngoniums here. Those roots are actually looking pretty decent. I'll trim those up in a couple days. They came in after the ones I was working on today, but everything's looking good. The leaves are like, you know, I'm not having any issues with these whatsoever. So everything in here is looking really quite nice. These are some gloriosum that came in, and they shipped really, really well this time. Really well. Had no issues whatsoever with those. I've got some Doriaki. Looks like I've got some clarinervium in there, some crystallium. This is, I can't remember what this is, I'll have to look, but it was really exciting. It's not something that I've seen. It's a cross between I believe it was a Fergetii and a Dressleri or something like that. I don't remember. It's a new one to me. So I'll cover that one back up. Show you guys here I have the tile and then that heat mat underneath there. So because it is in an old, it does get chilly down here. So I just want to make sure everything stays warm and cozy. Yeah, so that's basically what I do a week or two after, you know, some plants come in. I don't generally have to check my anthuriums. I mostly check philodendrons, syngoniums. Those ones tend, for me at least, to get more disposable roots when they come in. The anthuriums don't seem to do that too much to me. They seem to be pretty strong rooted. As long as they come in strong rooted, they seem to do really well. Yeah, so if you have any questions, please comment below. If you liked my video, like, subscribe, all that jazz. If you didn't, then don't. I think there's a bell if you want to get notified whenever I post a video. You can hit that bell. I'm going to try to post more. If you have any requests or suggestions, stuff that you think would be more interesting than what I'm doing, if you think what I'm doing is interesting, please let me know. Give me a little bit of feedback so I know if I'm on the right track or if I'm wasting my time and just filming myself for no reason. Yeah, so give me an idea on what more you guys want to see or what you don't want to see or whatever. Be nice about it though, because I cry easy. And that's all for now, folks. Bye-bye.